It is said, there is no sin in killing a beast, only in killing a man. But where does one begin and the other end? That depends on your point of view. In an old crumbling mansion hidden deep within a forest, in a dark, windowless room found within, lit only by a flickering flame of a candle, two monsters found themselves face to face. Geralt the Witcher and Nivellen, once a man. Engulfed in dark and quiet, with a large oak table filled with various dishes and drinks between them, they sat motionlessly, returning each other's gaze.
Let's assume,
Nivellen spoke and broke the silence,
that you draw your sword before I jump on you. Let's assume you even manage to cut me down. With my weight, that won't stop me. I'll take you down through sheer momentum. And then, it's teeth that'll decide. What do you think, Witcher? Which one of us has a better chance when it comes to biting each other's throat?
The Witcher played with a cork stopper while Nivellen spoke, slowly reaching for a wooden flagon and pouring himself some wine. He took a sip, leaned back in his chair, and looked back at the monster with a smile. An exceptionally ugly smile.
Yes,
breathed the monster, likewise leaning back in his chair and stroking his hairy chin with a curved claw.
One has to admit, you can answer a question without using many words. It'll be interesting how you manage the next one. Who sent you?
No one. I'm here by accident.
You're not lying by any chance?
I'm not in the habit of lying. The Witcher spoke clearly and confidently, taking another sip from his golden chalice. There was no response from the monster, only a frown of his brow, and the quiet sound of a claw scratching fur as he observed Geralt from across the table.
And what are you in the habit of doing?
The monster spoke offhandedly between stuffing its maw.
I've heard about witchers. They abduct tiny children whom they feed with magic herbs. The ones that survive become witchers themselves, sorcerers with inhuman powers. They're taught to kill, and all human feelings and reactions are trained out of them. They're turned into monsters in order to kill other monsters. I've heard it said it's high time someone started hunting witchers, as there's fewer and fewer monsters and more witchers. Do have some partridge before it's completely cold.
Nivellen took the stuffed bird from a dish and threw it in his open jaws. Effortlessly, he crunched the bird, bones and all, and swallowed it after giving it a few chews. Fresh grease decorated his dark fur.
Why don't you say anything?
He said, wiping grease from his chin.
How much of the rumors about you witchers is true?
Practically nothing.
And what's a lie?
That there are fewer and fewer monsters. A dry laugh escaped the monster's jaw.
True, there's a fair number of them. One is sitting in front of you wondering if he did the right thing by inviting you in. I didn't like your guild badge from the start, dear guest.
You aren't a monster, Nivellen, the Witcher said dryly.
Pox on it, that's something new,
said the monster incredulously, grabbing the sides of the heavy oaken table in his large paws and leaning forward.
So, what am I? Cranberry pudding? A flock of wild geese flying south on a sad November morning? No, maybe I'm the virtue that a miller's buxom daughter lost in the spring. Well, Geralt, tell me, what am I? Can't you see I'm shaking with curiosity?
The massive table looked quite feeble in Nivellen's powerful grip. You're not a monster. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to touch this silver tray, and in no way could you hold my medallion. The silver medallion that hung from the Witcher's neck glistened in the dim candlelight.
Ha!
Nivellen threw back his head and unleashed a bellowing combination of a hearty laugh and an animal roar.
Today, very clearly, is the day of revealing great and terrible secrets. Now I'm going to be told I grew these ears because I didn't like milk and porridge as child.
No, Nivellen. Despite Nivellen's provocations, the Witcher remained calm. It happened because of a spell. I'm sure you know who cast that spell.
And what if I do?
In many cases, spells can be uncast.
And you, as a witcher, can uncast spells in many cases.
I can. Do you want me to try? With the table still held firmly in his paws, the monster cocked his head to the side and with a smile spoke.
No, I don't.
He let his fire-red, 2-span-long tongue hang loosely from his grinning maw.
Surprised you, hasn't it?
That it has, admitted Geralt, politely containing his curiosity for the moment. The monster giggled and lounged in his armchair.
I knew that would. Pour yourself some more, get comfortable, and I'll tell you the whole story. Witcher or not, you've got an honest face and I feel like talking.
Warmed by wine and satiated by food, the Witcher and the monster sat and talked. Nivellen began his story by telling Geralt of his family business.
As no doubt you've noticed,
He began, pouring them some more wine.
this is quite a remote area. It's a long way to the nearest human settlement. It's because, you see, my father, and my grandfather too in his time, didn't make themselves particularly loved by our neighbors or the merchants using the highway. If anyone went astray here and my father spotted them from the tower, they'd lost at best their fortune.
A high-born family turned common brigands, Geralt thought to himself, nothing he hasn't heard of before. Continuing his story, Nivellen told how he, following his father's close encounter with a bastard sword, found himself the leader of the gang.
I was young at the time,
He said, absent-mindedly tapping on the armrest.
a real milksop, so the lads in the crew wound me up around their little fingers in a flash. I'll spare you the details and get straight to the point. One day we took ourselves as far as Gilbot, near Mert, and robbed a temple. A young priestess was there too.
The Witcher knew all too well what happens to young priestesses in desecrated temples. Which temple, Nivellen?
A bad one. There were skulls and bones at the altar, I remember, and a green fire was burning. It stank like nobody's business, but to the point. The lads overpowered the priestess and stripped her, then said I had to become a man. Well, I became a man, stupid little snot that I was, and while I was achieving manhood, the priestess spat in my face and screamed something.
What? Asked Geralt.
That I was a monster in human skin, that I'll be a monster in monster skin, something about love, blood, I can't remember. She had a little dagger hidden in her hair. She killed herself and then we fled from there. It was a bad temple.
The monster fell quiet for a moment, gazing at the solitary candle, the flicker of the flame reflecting off his shiny eyes. Go on, prompted the Witcher quietly.
Then it was as the priestess said.
He downed an entire cup of wine and slammed it angrily on the table. He poured himself another and proceeded to explain how, a few days later, he woke up. The servants screamed and took to the heels at the sight of him.
You see, Geralt, I panicked, had some sort of an attack. To put it briefly, corpses fell. Several corpses. Whoever could get out ran away in panic. I was roaring, howling, going mad, smashing whatever came to hands, mainly mirrors.
Nivellen paused, sighed, and sniffed.
When the attack was over, it was already too late. I was alone. I was just a stupid youngster, sobbing over the servants' bodies in an empty manor.
Nivellen proceeded to tell the Witcher how, for a very long time, he sat in the manor, quiet as a mouse. Months have passed, and every now and again a stray traveler or merchant would stumble his way in his yard, rummage about, but Nivellen remained locked up in the manor, shunning all company and visitors. One day he looked out the window. More trespassers. A fat old man, merchant most like. Nivellen had no intentions of leaving the safety of the manor until he saw the merchant commit a grave transgression. He plucked a rose, a beautiful blue rose from a bush behind the fountain. This act of thievery made him fly into a blind fury and he jumped outside.
The fat trespasser,
said the monster,
lost it when he saw me, squealed that he only wanted a few flowers for his daughter. I was just ready to kick him out of the main gate when I remembered something. Stories Lenka, my nanny, the old bag, used to tell me.
Nivellen chuckled softly before continuing.
If pretty girls turn frogs into princess, or the other way around, then maybe there's a grain of truth in those stories. I leapt 4 yards and roared so loud wild wine tumbled from the wall, and I yelled, "Your daughter or your life!" Nothing better came to mind. The merchant began to weep, then confessed his daughter was only 8.
The Witcher suppressed a cackle, not wanting to insult his guest further.
I didn't know whether to laugh or cry over my shitty fate. I felt sorry for the old trader. I invited him inside, made him welcome, and when he was leaving, I poured gold and precious stones in his bag. There was still a fair fortune left. I hadn't quite known what to do with it, so I could allow myself this small gesture. The merchant thanked me so profusely that he slobbered all over himself. He must have boasted about his adventure somewhere, because not 2 weeks had gone by when another merchant appeared. He had a large bag ready with him, and a daughter, also pretty large.
Nivellen extended his legs under the table and stretched until the armchair creaked. He told the Witcher how he quickly came to an agreement with the merchant, a sack of gold and precious stones for a year of company.
At first, the girl was frightened to death. She had fits at the sight of me for a while. She really thought I'd eat her.
The monster said in an amused voice and continued. The poor girl got used to the sight of him and soon after his company. He talked of pleasant meals spent together and long walks filled with chatter, but their acquaintance went no further.
You see, Geralt, I was always shy with girls, even with wenches from cowsheds with tongue up to the knees. The year dragged like stench following marauding troops until, at last, the merchant arrived and took her away.
In the dim candlelight, the Witcher could see a flash of sadness in the monster's eyes.
I locked myself in the house and didn't react for several months to any of the guests who turned up with daughters.
Continued Nivellen in a less mournful tone.
But after a year spent with company, I realized how hard it was to live without anyone to talk to.
The monster made a noise which resembled a drawn-out sigh and continued with his story. Geralt listened to the monster recount his temporary housemates with great interest. After the shy one came Fen, a lovely small bundle of energy, a real Goldcrest. Unlike the one that came before her, Fen was not frightened by Nivellen's monstrous appearance, and one warm summer night, after several flagons of mead, the monster and the beauty wound up in bed.
Straight after, I jumped out of bed and ran to the mirror. I must admit, I was disappointed. The trap was the same as it ever was, if with a slightly more stupid expression.
He chuckled sadly at his own expense and downed another glass of wine.
And they say wisdom of ages is to be found in fairy tales. It's not worth shit, wisdom like that, Geralt.
After Fen, the beautiful swallow, came Primula, the daughter of a poor, skinny knight that stank to high heaven and resembled a sack of rotten potatoes. Primula shared her predecessor's open-minded views and embraced Nivellen with open arms.
After 2 weeks, Primula and I already had a very close relationship,
he said, chuckling like a child talking about cooties.
She liked to pull me by the ears and shout, "Bite me to death, you animal, and tear me to pieces, you beast," and other equally idiotic things. I ran to the mirror in the breaks, but just imagine, Geralt. I looked at myself with growing anxiety.
Wiping the wine off his whiskers, Nivellen rested his hands on his stomach.
Less and less did I long to return to my former shape. You see, Geralt, I used to be a weakling, and now I'm a strapping fellow. I'd keep getting ill, I'd cough and my nose would run, but now I don't catch anything. And my teeth, you wouldn't believe how rotten my teeth had been. And now, I can bite through a leg of a chair.
Reaching to his right, the monster effortlessly lifted a spare chair and waved it about.
Do you want me to bite through a leg of a chair?
With a large grin on his face, the Witcher shook his head. No, I don't. The monster further told Geralt that after Primula came only 2 more year-long partners, Ilka and Venimira. The pattern that started with Primula repeated itself to the point of boredom. First came a mixture of fear and reserve, then a thread of sympathy, and then bite me, eat me up. Yet Nivellen remained as he was, unchanged and slowly growing weary of this yearly charade. After his last goodbye with his final partner, Nivellen accepted his fate and came to peace with what he was. Nothing needed changing. "Really? No changes, Nivellen?" asked the Witcher.
It's true. I have a horse's health, which came with the way I look. Secondly, my being different works on girls like an aphrodisiac. And thirdly, safety. Father had enemies, and a couple of them survived. There's gold in the cellar. If it wasn't for the fear inspired by me, somebody would have come and get it, if only peasants with pitchforks.
Throwing a clean bird wing on the ever-growing pile of bird carcasses, Geralt stretched his legs and relaxed. But you suspected someone had paid me to kill you. Who would have?
A scoundrel who wanted the contents of my cellar, but didn't have any more daughters.
Nivellen said emphatically.
Human greed knows no limits.
They both remained silent, contemplating the violent nature of the human race, until, just as the candle had run out of wick, Geralt spoke. Nivellen, said the Witcher quietly, are you alone now?
Witcher,
answered the monster after a moment's hesitation.
I think that, in principle, I ought to insult you, take you by the neck and throw you down the stairs. Do you know why? Because you treat me like a dimwit. I noticed you've been cocking your ears and glancing at the door. You know perfectly well that I don't live alone. Am I right?
You are. I'm sorry.
Pox on your apologies. Have you seen her?
Yes, in the forest by the gate. Is she why the merchants and the daughters have been leaving empty-handed here for some time? The memory of the deceased couple in the meadow flashed before the Witcher's eyes.
So you know about that too? Yes, she's the reason.
Do you mind if I ask whether, with a gesture of his large, furry paw, Nivellen interrupted the Witcher?
Yes, I do mind.
Silence fell on them again. Oh well, it's up to you, the Witcher finally said, getting up. Thanks for your hospitality, dear host. It is time I was on my way.
Quite right.
Nivellen also got up.
For certain reasons, I can't offer you a room in the manor for the night, and I don't encourage you to spend the night in these woods. Ever since the area's been deserted, it's been bad at night here.
In the courtyard, as Geralt was adjusting the saddlebags, Nivellen stroked the mare's nostrils and patted her neck. Roach, pleased with the caress, lowered her head.
Animals like me,
boasted the monster.
And I like them too. My cat, Glutton, ran away at the beginning, but she came back later. For a long time, she was the only living creature who kept me company in my misfortune. Verena too.
He broke off with a grimace. Geralt smiled. Does she like cats too?
Birds.
Nivellen barred his teeth.
I gave myself away, pox on it. But what's the harm? She isn't another merchant's daughter, Geralt, or another attempt to find a grain of truth in the old folk tales. It's serious. We love each other. If you laugh, I'll sock you one.
Geralt didn't laugh. You know your Verena, he said, is probably a Rolaska.
I suspected as much. Slim, dark, she rarely speaks, and in a language I don't know. She doesn't eat human food. She disappears into the forest for days on end, then comes back. Is that typical?
More or less. The Witcher tightened Roach's girt strap. No doubt you think she wouldn't return if you were to become human.
Oh, I'm sure of it. You know how frightened the Rolaskas are of people. Hardly has anybody seen a Rolaska from up close, but Verena and I... Pox on it, take care, Geralt.
Take care, Nivellen. The Witcher prodded the mare in its side with his heel and made towards the gate. The monster shuffled along at its side.
Geralt?
Yes?
I'm not as stupid as you think. You came here following the tracks of one of the merchants who's been here lately. Has something happened to them?
Yes.
The last was here 3 days ago with his daughter, not one of the prettiest, by the way. I commanded the house to close all its doors and shutters and gave no signs of life. They wandered around the courtyard and left. The girl picked up a rose from my aunt's rose bush and pinned her to her dress, a blue rose. Look for them somewhere else, but be careful. This is a horrible area. I told you that the forest isn't the safest place at night. Ugly things are heard and seen.
Thanks, Nivellen. I'll remember about you. Who knows? Maybe I'll find someone who...
Maybe yes, maybe no. It's my problem, Geralt. My life and my punishment. I've learned to put up with it. I've gotten used to it. If it gets worse, I'll get used to that. And if it gets far worse, don't look for anybody. Come here yourself and put an end to it. As a Witcher. Take care, Geralt.
Nivellen turned and marched towards the manor. He didn't look around again. And on that note, I want to end this episode of Witcher Stories, the third volume of A Grain of Truth. For those of you who have read the story, know that this is not the complete story. There's another volume that I need to make, and it's going to be a very short one because unfortunately this video just dragged on for way too long. It's going to be 20 something minutes long, and I'm going to keep this short so I don't make it 22 minutes long. I hope you enjoyed this video. The next video should be out as soon as humanly possible. Possibly the next couple of days, if not, then right after on next Friday. Anyhow, my name has been Soulfax. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.